If the DC Extended Universe is going to be remembered for anything, it's going to be for how badly Warner Bros. Botched what should have been one of the biggest franchises in cinema. How the first crossover movie between Batman and Superman didn't even crack $900 million at the box office. How the first live action Justice League movie grossed less than freaking Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, the tree and the talking raccoon movie? Yeah, for all its failures, of which there are many, the franchise wasn't without its bright spots. Though the first Shazam movie didn't blow the roof off at the box office, I thought it was an incredibly charming take on the superhero genre. The first Wonder Woman movie was a commercial and critical success. Yet the brightest spot for me was probably the first Aquaman movie. Not because it reinvented the wheel, not because of its smart writing, of which, let's face it, there was none, but because it was the pinnacle of dumb fun done well, and just had an incredible sense of adventure and set pieces to boot. Yet, in spite of all that, I found it hard to be excited for this movie. Because if Wonder Woman 1984 and Shazam Fury of the Gods has proven anything, it's that the DCEU is willing to take its bright spots and darken them. And with the release of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, DC has done it again, taking one of their most endearing properties and delivering one of their worst movies with it. Instead of doing anything interesting with the Aquaman character, the Lost Kingdom delivers all the same aspects of the first movie, but worse. The first Aquaman delivered some of the most energizing action in the superhero genre, and a lot of that had to do with the restraint shown in the use of cuts by director James Wan. And while there's even more action in this movie, because everyone knows bigger is better when it comes to sequels, not a single one of the set pieces are as good as anything from the first film. The direction is just far more pedestrian, there are far more cuts, and nothing is done to differentiate the action from anything directed by a second unit director in a Marvel movie. The same can be said for the sense of adventure I brought up earlier, which feels like it's been dulled down from its predecessor. Though the first movie has a tight pace and a good sense of story direction, this movie takes far too long to get going, and ultimately doesn't take you to any interesting places. The settings are far more bland than anything we've seen before, and there's nothing as memorable as the trench scene in the first movie. I still vividly remember being stunned by a few of the shots from 2018's Aquaman, yet I don't think there was a single shot in this movie that warranted such a reaction from me. If the first movie was a romance adventure, James Wan describes this movie as a buddy cop film, with Jason Momoa's Aquaman and Patrick Wilson's Orm as the buddy cops at the center. Now, I love a buddy cop movie, but I think that decision was a mistake, because while the romance between Arthur Curry and Mara was nothing to write home about, it still proves to be a much more affecting emotional core than the one in this movie, if you can even say it has one. Speaking of Mara, every character from the first movie returns as a worse version of themselves. Despite being Aquaman's wife and baby mama, Mara has been zapped of every bit of personality she had in the previous movie, and mainly stands around and doesn't speak unless she's spoken to. Black Manta returns in a been there done that revenge arc, which this movie treats like something we haven't seen before, but he really spends most of the movie espousing the most low effort one-liners imaginable. He's less of a character and more like an action figure, puppeted by an 8-year-old behind the camera. Nicole Kidman is back and she plays Nicole Kidman. Willem Dafoe is one of the few who doesn't return from the first movie, and having seen this, I think he should count his blessings. For a sequel, it's also surprisingly low on new characters, one of the few being played by Randall Park. And I'm usually a fan of Randall, but he spends most of the movie in a B-plot with Black Manta, and every time they cut away to those two, we get some of the most boring scenes in the movie. If the first movie didn't take itself seriously, this movie goes out of its way to be so unserious to the point of being comical. There's a moment of tragedy that occurs somewhere in the middle of the movie, and not only do we get two characters screaming "No!" into the clouds, we get a cheesy slow motion effect that feels less like slow motion and more like they just slowed down the frame rate. Usually when it comes to movies I don't like, I can still easily identify the aspects that worked, the strengths of a movie. I can't remember the last time I've struggled more to do so. But if I had to point to one, there are moments of chemistry between Arthur Curry and Orm that are charming, and both Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson's charisma comes through in these moments. Another thing that really worked about this movie is, God, this is hard, but at least it wasn't longer. The DCEU has been a long, tiresome, and quite flawed experiment. I'm just glad to be leaving it behind, and I'm excited to see what James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to do with it. As far as this movie goes, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.